perfect show. It's like an amazing, it's very rare when you get an opportunity to see a show that's a shonen style anime like Dragon Ball or Naruto or Bleach or something. But it's normally, because they have to do so many episodes, they're like, well, let's find a cheaper animation studio to do it. Someone who's like, that has to rush it out real fast. But the fact that they're using Bones is just an amazing animation company, and they're really taking their time to make each season flawless. That's a really unique thing. So I thought I'd really include into something, and I thought I was the only one that was really liking it for a little while. But very quickly, you know, the first con I went to, like 10 people wanted an All Might thing, and then it was like 1 every 20 people, and now it's like 1 every it's like 50% of people are coming up for My Hero Academia now, and that makes me very excited. Because for the first time, you're actually able to be involved in something that's a long-running show that's still in progress. Like, you don't even get to, it's not going to be spoiled by all the people who have already watched the show before you did, like a year before you got a chance to do it. You're actually getting to watch it at the same time. It's very exciting, and I get instant feedback. And when I blow out my voice screaming, Texas Smash! Then at least I get some feedback like a week later that they really liked it, as opposed to like screaming into a vacuum and never hearing about it again. Which is what happened with Dragon Ball, because we were working on Dragon Ball Z and I would just like yell and yell and yell, and nobody still knew what the show was, except for 6-year-olds and their parents who were like, I really wish my kid didn't watch this show. It just makes them really hyper and run around the house punching things, so anyhow. Man, I'm so happy to be here. I thank you all for realizing that I'm not going to be here. How many of you don't know that I'm not going to be able to be here tomorrow or Sunday? Like, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, you're in the front row and everything. Whoa, check you out. Your shirt is like dye sublimated to actually show your nipples underneath it. Would you stand up for just another second? Look, he has like realistic nipples on his shirt. Yeah, there you go. It's if you want to be naked, but you want that UV protection, so. That's right. That's really clever. You could have just worn like a clear shirt, but that'd be too revealing. I gotta get one of those. All right, sorry. Okay, so I guess I should open up the questions because I want to give him something to do, or else he's just gonna stand in the back going like, I'm so bored.
Yeah, I was like checking my phone. I was like, I wish this guy would showed up with all those cool voices in his career.
Is this almost over or what? Okay, let's, if you guys have some questions, please feel free to ask them. If you don't, like, we could just sit here for a while and listen to music.
You raise your hand, I wander over to you, and then we do this mic thing. And thank you. See, that's great.
He's not going to ask you.
So he moved so I can sit on his lap and then give him the mic.
So I was just curious, because you played Kuwabara as well in Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, I played Kuwabara in Yatsu. And I was super excited to find out that they're going to do another Yu Yu Hakusho here. Have you guys heard that? That they're doing a Yu Yu Hakusho over there? Now, I'm not announcing the English dub or anything because I honestly don't know, but people keep asking me like, are you going to dub it into English? I'm like, I don't know. Like, are you going to be the voice of Kuwabara? I'm like, I better be. If not, I will hunt whoever is doing it down and I will like punch them in the face. So I'm sorry if you get cast as the voice of Kuwabara and it's your dream come true, because it will be your nightmare ultimately. Did you have a follow-up question, or do you just like the smell of that microphone?
The microphone's pretty cool.
Okay,
no,
cool.
So I was just curious, because Vegeta and Kuwabara are so drastically different. How much fun did you have switching from a character that was so prideful he couldn't see 3 feet in front of him to a guy who literally couldn't fight someone 3 feet in front of him?
That is a pretty accurate description of those two characters. It was so nice to go to Kuwabara from Vegeta because it was just Vegeta, Vegeta, Vegeta all day. And then finally, like, oh, we have a new show. Because back in those days, Funimation didn't own everything. They only owned one thing, and that was Dragon Ball. And then this show called Blue Gender, which like 5 people watched. And then, oh wait, no. Hey, all 8 of you are here today. That's great. Thank you so much. Blue Gender, though, oddly enough, was that's the first show that Funimation did after Dragon Ball that was actually recorded in the style that we record today. That's because Funimation didn't know really what that show was or had any clue really what it was about, and because they got it early enough, and it was a relatively new show, I asked for all of the Japanese audio and all of the sound effects and the music to be placed into the session. So when actors were in the room, you got we got to listen to the Japanese version first, and then we got to record the English version. And that was really eye-opening for a lot of us, because when we were working on Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho, we didn't have the Japanese materials to work off of. Like, you could maybe get, like, you know, bootleg VHS tapes or something like that of the Japanese, but because Funimation was having such a hard time getting the materials to start dubbing it, Japan couldn't get them all the materials fast enough, so they went to the closest place that they could find that had already done a dub of Dragon Ball, and that was Mexico. So when we listened to the original tapes, I was like, Goku! And then, but it was really funny because I learned a bit of trivia. Did you know they had to change Chi-Chi's name in Spanish for some reason? I don't know why. Her name is Milk. Anyway, it's also a name pun, which is fun. You know that name puns are pretty fun, although they're getting more and more confusing. There's these two new Saiyan females in Super, and they're like cauliflower, which I get, but what vegetable does kale come from? Kale? I'm just kidding. That's okay. It's okay. He at least liked it. The security guy who walked me over here, he's like, oh, from a distance, I thought you were like some sort of vegetarian or something like that. And it dawned on me, I'm like, maybe that's what you're called when you're from the planet Vegeta. Like, are you a vegetarian? Like, I think that's what you would be. Like, anyway, sorry. That was the first time it ever dawned on me that could be the case. Where are you? There you are.
I'm here.
Stand or sit?
You can stand or sit. You're the boss of you, buddy.
Yeah, stand. There you go.
I'll hold the mic there, damn it. Oh, jeez.
He has a mic control issue.
Yes,
he likes it.
First off, before I get to my question, sir, I wanted to personally thank you for being that spearhead of bringing One Piece back to the mainstream after that 4 Kids incident. I grew up on the original Japanese. I stopped watching it after a while, and you and Funimation and doing everything for One Piece, I just have to say thank you very much for bringing these characters back into the mainstream.
It felt good to rescue a show.
Yeah.
It really did. After working on Dragon Ball, because the original producers of Dragon Ball Z were just trying to get that show on television so much that like they were fighting like pop culture at that point. And pop culture was dictating like the powers that be would go, I mean, adults don't watch cartoons. They don't want, like, kids watch cartoons. And so the idea behind Dragon Ball Z, at least when we were dubbing it, the mission was try and make it enjoyable in English. Sorry if it's not as much like the Japanese as it should be, but that's just kind of, and plus the translations we got, the materials weren't that great back then. It was a completely different environment. And I remember, while I was working on Dragon Ball Z, there was a moment where Funimation had the materials for One Piece in their hands. Like, in fact, that we thought we were getting it. It looked like we actually did a test dub of that. Have you ever heard about this? Has anyone? Funimation actually did a test dub of a few episodes just to show to investors and people like what the show was going to be like. And believe it, like at that time, I played Helmeppo, and this guy named Andy Chandler, who played Cooler in Cooler's Revenge and all the Cooler movies and stuff, he played Zoro, and Eric Vale, who played Trunks, was Luffy. If you can, yeah. So, and I was really excited. And during that time, I watched a lot of the episodes, and I read a lot of the manga, and I was really stoked to work on that show. And then I found out that I guess they passed on it. And I think they passed on it because they looked at it and they saw like in one of the first episodes, like people shooting a gun at a child and then the bullets bouncing off of them, and they're like, that's questionable material. Maybe we don't want to show that on television and be responsible for what happened. So I think they passed on it at that time, but it was good after years of going to conventions, meeting fans going, why'd you change the music on Dragon Ball? Why'd you change the line on Dragon Ball? They didn't go send it saying that doesn't even exist. It was nice to be the people to come in and kind of like take a show and do something kind of like true to the original intention. So thanks, that's a good compliment. All right, thank you. I'm going to go now because that felt really good.
Perfect. End on a high note. Always end strong.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Chris.
I think we have time for like about 30 more questions.
I've got him too.
Oh, this guy, I was wondering about, I met him earlier and I was like, you have like hug protection on your chest there. It's like, don't hug me. But apparently it's magnetic. You can remove it for hugging purposes, so.
Okay, so, well, I thought long and hard about this, but I want to see what you think about it.
I like it.
Of all the characters you played, aside from All Might himself, who do you think would be the most worthy of inheriting One for All?
Ooh. I would, the one who needs it the most is probably Yamcha. Please, give it to me. Boom, I'm over here. I have new power now. Yay. It's my cat's love food power. Oh God. Yeah, poor thing, Yamcha. Actually, I've really enjoyed the rise and fall, and then the subsequent rise of Yamcha as of late. Like on Twitter, I still like to pretend like he's the strongest character of all time. It's like this online joke that he is like amazing and also awful at the same time. Hail Yamcha, Yamcha month. Anyway, it's over, Yamcha month, so don't celebrate anymore. All right, who's next?
Okay, so I'm not sure if you're gonna remember this.
I remember you just talked to you like 10 minutes ago.
No, not me.
Okay.
It's Android 13 movie, right? Yeah, at the end of the Android 13 movie, right before the credits hit.
You mean when the fish jump?
Yeah, did you improvise that? Was that in the script? Because I think that's brilliant.
We did, it was not in the script, we just added that because it just looked like it really needed to go there. Not until the fish jumps. It's over. Like, yeah, it was just, and another thing that I always wanted to add into the show, which I ultimately got to add into Dragon Ball Z, was that every time you would see something by the animation company that does all the movies, they have this logo of like these rocks with these waves hitting the rocks, and every time we would dub one, before the episode, I would dub myself going like, "Waves and Rocks." Show was brought to you by Waves and Rocks. Which I did get to finally do when they did that parody of the Cell Saga during the tournament, where they had all like the bobblehead versions of that. Ultimately, I was able to get Team 4-Star to come in and do for which somehow didn't exist at the same time. Like, but most of you have seen it anyway. Cool. Yes, I do remember that. Next. Blue Man Group.
Yes.
Aquaman. Oh yeah, Vegeta with, oh man, I never even thought about what Vegeta would look like without his armor on there. He's just wearing a onesie.
Before I get to the question, I want to thank you for being probably the most dominant and recognizable voice of my entire childhood with Vegeta. But I have a quick question. If you can think back to when you first got that role, how did you come up with that particular voice and then consistently upgrade it, kind of, I guess, quality to quality, and how different is that process from doing All Might? Because they're kind of similar voices, but not.
Well,
it's not as angry.
When I was first coming up and crafting the voice of Vegeta, I had this specific voice in mind. A very, very specific voice, and that voice was named Brian Drummond. And because Brian Drummond was the voice of the Canadian Vegeta that you guys remember when you were like 5 or 6 years old, and all of a sudden the voices just changed for no reason. You were like, what the heck happened? Like, oh well, I guess it's Dragon Ball, I'll keep watching it. So yeah, I was originally cast based on my ability to mimic that voice. Subsequently, I don't know if you are all aware of this, but I brought Brian Drummond, that original Vegeta voice, back in to play copy Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super. Because it felt like the right thing to do, especially if you put him on a character called Copy Vegeta. If anyone should be playing a character called Copy Vegeta, it actually should be me. But he's great to work with, and he's the guy that you would know from the Over 9000 meme. They pulled him from the Canadian version, in case you weren't aware of that. So that was really it. And with Vegeta's voice, I started with a copy of his voice, but then very quickly tried to change it into what I wanted Vegeta's voice to be, because it's hard enough to act on a character. It's harder to act like somebody else acting like a character. So I just really wanted to make the voice my own. And if you look at a progression of Vegeta from like the beginning of the show to the end of the show, like he looks like a completely different character. Like he starts off like just kind of clean and like it's like his face is all like smooth and whatever, and by the end of the series he has like these testicles drawn between his eyes, you know what I'm talking about? Like he gets muscles between his eyebrows, which is bizarre. So I kind of lowered his voice and made him a little bit darker and not as fancy pants as he started, you know what I mean? With All Might, that's where we kind of got to play around with the voice. Luckily, the Japanese seiyuu for All Might is amazing, and so I got to base some of it off of what I thought it would be. But of course, in that case, we had so much to go on. We had the idea that he was based on kind of an American comic book character, so we were trying to think, what would an American superhero sound like? And so it was kind of a little bit of Superman, a little bit of just showboating, and then some copying the Japanese and some just whatever I felt like doing at that time. You look at, he's a touch of Alex Louis Armstrong as well in there. Someone asked me earlier, like, what's the difference between those two voices? I'm like, well, Alex Louis Armstrong has this jolly thing that he does, and he's always super emotional, and so he's got this little quiver in his voice. But All Might, his voice is, I am here. It's very clear and very precise. It's like a bullet. But I'm so lucky I get to play the No Might version as well, or the Little Might version. Small Might, okay. I never committed to that. It's not on the action figure box. I'm sorry. Did you guys see yesterday or the day before they announced the Small Might pop figure? Isn't it cool looking? It looks so good. You've seen the All Might version that exists now, and he barely fits in the small box. You know what I'm talking about? He's just so huge. But the Small Might is so cool looking. They did a great job with his hair, and his eyes look super epic. Anyway. Please silence your child. I'm joking. You do not have to leave. I'm going to be screaming more than this child will in this panel anyway. You do not have to leave. I'm kidding. I was just trying to be a pretentious actor. Please silence your children. Put them in their child protective pouches.
Me and my brother been wondering, why is there always two titles in every Funimation show?
Why are there always two
titles?
What? Titles?
Every episode. Every episode has like two titles in every Funimation show. Like, why is that?
Every Funimation show has two titles? I actually am not aware of that. I don't watch the titles very much.
Titled To the Promised Resort, Vegeta goes on a family trip.
Oh, where all of the Dragon Ball episodes have those weird titles?
That's true. Titles.
Yeah, they're always bizarre. Like the Funimation, Dragon Ball is very strange. I've never, the titles for Dragon Ball Z especially, and Super, are the worst in my opinion. I'm sorry, but the narrator's like, what'll happen next on the next Dragon Ball Z? On the next Dragon Ball Z, Cell defeated? That's crazy. Is the name of the episode? Why would you call it that? Will Trunks escape? On the next episode, Trunks escapes. A miraculous escape. Barely makes it. Come on. Worst episode names ever. And in fact, SEAN SCHEMMEL finds the episode names so funny because they'll put question marks in them a lot. And Sean loves to read it Frieza's gone? He can't take reading the titles very seriously ever. But on the next, will Vegeta power up to become a Super Saiyan? On the next Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super, Vegeta turns Super Saiyan. Anyway, yes, Vegeta, a Super Saiyan? A next transformation? Sorry, go ahead. He's got the only microphone, so...
Where am I going?
He's working his way over there.
Miles, I will come back.
then he's gonna swing around the front of the room, you know?
Yes, I'm a swinger. Oh, with the microphone. Oh, never mind. Oh, geez. Family.
So true in so many ways.
There's like 7 hands. This guy? Who are you? Why did I come over here? What am I doing, Chris?
The guy who's like furiously waving his hand.
Furiously waving. Oh, thank you.
No, behind him. The guy looks like he's waving for help over there. That guy, yes.
All right, can you actually go that way, because it's a shorter climb. I'll run over to you. I'll saunter quickly. I'm not going to run in these boots. But they're good for sauntering.
That's cool that you have Majin Vegeta on the back of your jacket. That's crazy.
What? That's Alice Cooper.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. Someone just needs to draw the Majin symbol on it. It'll look perfect.
Come on here, yeah. Come on here. I don't want to, have to crawl over people. It's weird and awkward.
That would actually be the Majin Vegeta action figure with the black hair instead of the. Remember they made the mistake on that action figure years ago where they put Majin Vegeta in a box with like just plain hair, like he didn't even have Super Saiyan hair. My second favorite one is the action figures that they just said, screw it, we've got these extra guns, let's put guns in the box too.
Before I ask a question, I would like to say it's a real honor to be here, Chris Sabat.
Thank you very much.
You were so awesome as Vegeta, Piccolo, and All Might.
What? All 3? Oh yes, that's right.
That's right, all 3 of them. Right now, Vegeta has his family of his own, which is great. The real question is, what will Vegeta plan to do when he defeats Goku in the battle?
Okay, that's a very good question. Vegeta would probably be super, super lonely and end up wishing him back with the Dragon Balls anyway. Because Vegeta really, I think, okay, he hates Kakarot, but he kind of likes Kakarot. You know that person who really, really irritates you, but you or the people that you pick on only because you kind of like them? I think that's sort of the case. I think he loves Kakarot. That's a very good question, though. I think he would end up wishing him back because that's just the way it is. That leads into another question that, someone said, why haven't they ever wished back Planet Vegeta? If they could wish back all these other things, they wish back Planet Namek, they could wish back Planet Vegeta. And I thought, how weird would that be if, Planet Vegeta came back? Of course, much like anybody else, that's another story altogether. Actually, anytime they wish people back after an extended period of time, do those people have memories of it happening? Or, because if they did, or if they didn't, the people that didn't die, in the tournaments and stuff, they would have been sitting right next to those people. And then those people came back and they're like, wait a minute, you were dead literally yesterday and now you're back. But that raises an important question. If they wish back Planet Vegeta, would he have to make a speech to everyone welcome back, Saiyan Warriors. Okay, look, I know we were a planet that used to, our whole economy and infrastructure was built around destroying planets or selling them and eradicating all the people on those planets and then selling it to lies, but we don't do that anymore because we're all nice. They're like, what? No, we're nice. We're nice people now. I'm a family man. No, I'm serious. I have a child. That picture you saw with me in the yellow pants and the pink, that is a real picture. With me in the pink shirt, yeah. It wasn't mine, it was Yamcha's. But seriously, we're all good people now. So, go about your business. I know you've been training your whole life for this, but you don't have to send your children off in space pods anymore. You have to raise them now. So, it would be a real culture shock for Saiyans, don't you think? That is true. So another question.
Yes, from Spider-Man right here. Here we go.
Oh, it's Spider-Man.
Hey, Chris.
Take care.
I'm a really big fan of Alex Louis Armstrong in the Brotherhood series. My question to you would be, is there a certain type of aspect that you bring to all of your characters?
A certain aspect that I give to them?
Yeah, maybe a certain characteristic.
I try and tailor that per character, but I always do trying, as a voice actor, it's very easy to just go in there and say the line the way it's very obvious to say it. If you look at a line you can read it, and then most actors can go, well, that's the obvious way to say that. Like, that is a very clear way to say that. The fun thing to do once you've been doing voice acting long enough is to try and say it in a way that's correct, but also sort of unexpected, to bring something out. And once you're voice acting and dubbing long enough, the real challenge comes with not just saying the line, but watching the character and seeing the character kind of move, or he changes his facial position, or he moves his head, or sits down during a line, and it's trying to tailor your read to fit like kind of what the face looks like. That's what I try and bring to all the characters. Like if the character, is saying a line and he sits down during the line, you like try and emote during that time, or if you can tell where they're saying something and their brow furrows a little bit as they're saying it, you want to try and add something in the line to kind of make that work. So yeah, well, I just realized I've been talking really loudly and really fast for the last 26 minutes, so because I feel like there's too many people here. I have to answer everything. Yes, Nipples McGee.
Yes.
Nipples McBackpack.
Yes, you killed Frieza, and he's my backpack now.
Cool.
With two of my most favorite characters are Vegeta and Zoro because they're so badass. Which one of them do you think is more badass?
Well, that's hard. Well, okay. This is going to be probably a very unpopular answer, but I do think that Zoro is more badass than Vegeta. Only because Zoro, for the most part, is so cool. Like, Vegeta's one of those people who's angry, and he's obviously angry. Like, he's always angry. He's pretty predictably angry all the time. Zoro, he's just so cool that he like does something amazing, takes all the pain in the universe, he's bloody from head to toe, and then he has a drink, and then he goes to sleep, and he gets lost, and then he kind of comes back, and then he's like does it all over again. So there is something kind of badass about that. But it's just a marginal. I think some of it's just Zoro knows he's like George is way cooler than Vegeta. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. I don't know. Whatever.
We are over here. All right. Aside from Dragon Ball Z,
yep,
your role as Elfman.
Elfman.
Manly. They just announced the next season of
God. No! I'm just kidding.
You'll be providing to continue as Elfman.
Again, I would say this about any role I've ever played. Like, the minute they give it to someone else, I will cry and then get angry, and then I'll be as uncool as Vegeta, and I'll rage. But yeah, assuming they get it, I can't see them saying, nah, we need to find some new voices for this show. I don't see them doing that anytime soon. So assuming that happens, and assuming that Funimation still owns the universe, we will hopefully, I will hopefully provide that voice. So either that, or I will give the voice to someone else, like Micah Solasad, perhaps. No one knows who he is, I guess. He was a very popular voice in like Soul Eater and stuff. Anyway.
Hello.
Hello.
Great question. All right, next.
Thank you. Could you say that more as a question? Could you put a question mark? Hello?
Hello?
I'm here. Thank you.
So my question is, how do you think All Might would scale if he was in like the Dragon Ball universe?
If he was in the Dragon Ball universe?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they would just give him a sensu bean and that would solve everything. Like, so that he would do, I think he'd fare very well there. I feel bad anytime someone comes up to me and is like, who do you think would win in a fight? Would it be All Might or X person? I'm like, well, any person that would fight him would probably know what his weakness is and probably just let him, let him wear out after an hour or so, and then take care of it then. I think they would be smart enough to do that, so it's a hard thing to answer. I feel bad because normally I like my characters to win, always, so.
My question is, you mentioned earlier like there was like a bit of butchering when it came to the original dub of DBZ, so was there like an active effort to correct that when you did Kai later on? Like, was that like actively new performance, like we didn't do too hot the first time, so we gotta kind of give something better for the fans?
I couldn't hear it very well because
sorry.
it's okay. The speaker's like way over there. So In summary, so when we did the first time, there was a lot of improv and stuff.
It wasn't like it wasn't kind of butchered from the Japanese. So
yes,
when you
totally.
did Kai, was there like an active, were you actively like trying to do better? Was that like?
Oh, of course. With Kai, so I tell people, if you want to experience the nostalgia of Dragon Ball Z and everything that comes with it, you watch the orange boxes and you watch the series, all 294 episodes. That's where you're gonna get Cats Love Food, yeah. That's where you're gonna get, I can do this, I feel great, yes! And all those awkward lines that you remember from your childhood. And you'll understand all the over 9,000 memes, all the things that happened back then. But if you really want to understand what the story of Dragon Ball Z was, told in a way that is most appropriate, Kai is definitely the thing to watch. Because we actively had great translations, we had amazing translators, we had fantastic writers, and the goal on Kai was to make it as close to the Japanese as possible without completely ruining the experience that original Dragon Ball fans had to. We would still kind of keep some. I think we did a Makanko Sapo and a special beam cannon just so that you could have both. And I think in that version for TV, I recorded over 9,000 for the TV version, but it's over 8,000 printed on disc forever, which I thought was just an appropriate nod to trying to make things right. Oh, thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a real quick question and then the real question.
Okay, I like a real quick question and then a real question.
Have you listened to All Systems Goku? Yes.
No, but you're the second person who told me about that podcast in the last few days.
It's really good. It's just two these middle-aged adults, white dudes, finding out that anime is really good and Dragon Ball Z is awesome.
I want to see All Systems Goku. I do have a problem with one of the guys apparently is still on the fence about whether he likes Vegeta or not. So
they love Vegeta.
I'm going to have to get on that show and prove to them that they like Vegeta. If anyone knows them or can reach out to them, tell them I will be on their show in a second.
Jeff Gerstmann, Dan Reichert.
Those jackasses? Ugh. I'm just kidding. What's your real question?
This one's big, but in the original, there was one line that Vegeta said that I loved. And it's when he says, "That's right, boys, Mondo Cool." Why was that changed from Kai to Kai?
Well, because so many people made fun of Mondo Cool that we ended up doing something that was a little closer to the translation in that moment. But trust me, I loved Mondo Cool. He has a Mondo Cool poster, guys. But we'll always have that. Mondo Cool exists in our hearts. We just wanted one that would the Japanese wouldn't look at us and shake their head like this. What have you done to our show?
I got it for you. Hello there, sir.
Hello.
I have a question in regards to much more low profile in your credits. Do you have, for one thing, by Twisted Pixels, the developers of the video game Comic Jump, Captain Smiley?
Hell yes!
How does it feel to voice two characters who are basically the same person?
That's true. That's basically, voicing two characters that are basically the same person is like working on Dragon Ball. Or any Dragon Ball villain. Let's see. Comic Jumper was a game that unfortunately came out pretty close to the end of the Xbox 360's life. And it was a game made by Twisted Pixel, the same people who make games like Splosion Man and Miss Splosion Man and The Maw. Maybe you've heard some of those. And Comic Jumper was this ridiculous game where because I knew the guys at Twisted Pixel so well, because they trusted me, they let me play this superhero that his own comic book was having financial problems because nobody was really reading it. So he had to go, the shtick is that he would ride this spacecraft in Time Comp or something to other people's comic books to help them do chores to raise money for his own comic book. So he would jump into all these different styles of comic books. And he, instead of having the superhero emblem on his shirt, he had this smiley face on his shirt because he was called Captain Smiley was his name. And the smile was a sentient creature. So the the superhero himself sounded kind of like Yamcha and had Yamcha's personality, but on his chest lived this guy who was angry like Vegeta, and just they hated each other. And throughout the whole game, they would just bicker like an angry married couple the whole time. It's like, you suck! And then the guy's like, no, I don't, man. You gotta give me more credit. He's like, what credit for what? Anyway, if you'll never get a chance to play that game, but maybe they'll re-release it someday. I would like to see that happen. Where's the...
I run over here, Chris. We're at the 10-minute warning, so I'm over to your right-hand side.
10-minute warning. Ah, yes.
Why does it work this side of the
sound
crowd?
comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
By the way, next time, I'm just saying, next time I want you to moderate my panel. I don't want you just out there working as a human mic stand. I want you to do what you do best, man, because you're seriously one of my favorite moderators of all time. You're awesome. I go way back with him, actually, because like for years and years, I went to so many anime festival Orlandos. So how many of you guys met me back then? Like, did any of you meet me at Anime Festival Orlando? Okay, I think that show, to my knowledge, still exists.
Still around, yeah. But
and it always happens at some unfortunate time when I'm never able to go. So
we plan it that way. They're like, when's he busy? Oh, you can't go. We'll send him an invite. What a jerk.
Yeah, it's like, Chris, are you busy August 3rd through the 5th? Yeah. Okay, that's when we're having our con.
So good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon.
I met you once before. I think it was at Tampa Bay MegaCon about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago.
I'm so sorry.
But back then I asked you to be Piccolo for me and encouraged me to go back to school. And I just wanted to let you know that I am about 4 credits away from graduating.
That is amazing.
So I really appreciate it. Every time I started to feel like this is too much work, I would pull it up and you'd be like, Ian, get your shit together, go train. And it gets me through that hump. So thank you very much.
That is awesome, man. Like, I'm so proud of everyone who kind of does what I tell them to do. Thank you. Vegeta and Piccolo, like voicing this character, I don't know, it's just like, I can yell at people and tell them to do something and they do it, and people actually work out and they like go to school and like they don't pick on their friends and like they stop being assholes and stuff like that. And it's an amazing power to wield. I really like it. I told this one person, this kind of one like fan came to me and like, hey, I have an idea for an application, and he showed it to me. I'm like, nah, that's all right. Do this and it'd be better, and and then come back to me in a year and let's see if it's any good. And he came back to me a year later and it was freaking awesome. And I'm working with him on that app, and eventually I'll be able to talk to you about it, but it's really, really cool. I've met so many people who have been inspired by this show in so many different ways, and so many people who have lived through so many different hardships. And Dragon Ball Z has inspired so many people, and it's amazing to be kind of a voice in that universe, like somebody who can relay that message to you, because I'm not Vegeta. I'm surprise. I'm actually not him. I'm sorry to disappoint some of you. But the idea that I get to play that character in a show that is so important to me, it carries a lot of weight, and I realize that. I've met people who, you know, had boiling water poured on them as a child, and they have like no flesh on their body right here, but the rest of their body is like pure muscle, because they watched Dragon Ball Z when they were in the hospital, and now they're like black belts in karate. And I met a kid who, you know, got stung by 400 Africanized bees, and he's allergic to bees, and he channeled Vegeta powering up to get through that experience. And it's so, like, it makes me so proud to be able to sit in front of all of you and like be a person who can kind of be I don't know, just a guy that's equally involved in it. And while Dragon Ball Z wasn't the same thing for me as it was for you, just like it was for so many people, it dramatically changed my life for the better. Like everything that it did for me, including giving me a job and putting my kids in school and like being around for 20 years and not stopping, like that is an amazing thing. And I really appreciate you guys all being here. I'm gonna start getting emotional, so I need to cut that out. I like sports. I like sports and violent shows. I don't get emotional. Sorry, I have time for one last question. I should have wrapped it up there.
Hello, I'm afraid that we're gonna have to go back to the emotional part there for a moment.
Oh, great.
What is currently your most emotionally taxing anime role to date?
If you can remember.
The most emotionally taxing role?
Yes.
Shoot. I remember there was a show, and this is one that maybe some of you haven't seen. It was called Salty Ray, by any chance. I played this guy, and he's like this kind of almost grizzled cop type thing, someone like from like Blade Runner or something. And then this girl, this almost like robot girl, falls from the sky or something one day, and then he kind of raises this thing sort of, and then she doesn't know what her deal is, and then becomes really emotionally attached to her, and then his own daughter, and as a father now, like I'm so much more emotional even in the booth. Like I never used to cry at anything, and now I like cry really easily. Don't tell anyone. But like, yeah, I watched Coco and was losing it, man. That was like, it was like my whole life is like the first 10 minutes of the movie Up, and like that is the saddest movie of all time. Like, anyway, we won't talk about that. We're all gonna leave the room crying. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. And as a parting gift, I will ruin the last part of my voice for you. Final Flash! Thank you! On a side note, you know I'm leaving today, but I am gonna run down and try and I probably have to leave here by like 4:30 at the very latest, so if you all wanna come hang out for a minute, I'll be downstairs for a little bit longer. Take care, everybody, bye!
Chillin' like krillin'. Chaz, how you doing? Your name is Chaz, right? Yep. Unless it's for somebody else. You all look perfect, by the way. How are you doing today?
Good.
I like how you have both POV.
Yeah. First person, third person.
That's perfect. Let's go. You should have like a drone that's just doing an overhead.
Yeah.
Or you can have someone walk behind you with the third camera or something. I don't know.
All right. Thank you.
Take care of yourself, dude.
All right.
That are comical or interesting or bring another layer to the show. That's like the most fun about the fun thing we can do. Because if you wanted us to just like literally stick exactly to the translation, well, then go watch the translation.
Yeah.
We don't do anything these days that like changes canon.
Yeah, we're all about canon.
We don't change the canon. We don't change the data. We don't really try and inject anything into it. But we'd like to kind of. We don't cancel. We don't cancel the mood anymore. But still, like that's the most fun. Adding things to the script is hysterical.
We're also trying to make it, more palatable, the humor to American audiences and English-speaking audiences and stuff. It doesn't always translate from Japanese, but generally we stick with it. I'm sorry.
No. That's just one of the things we did when we originally dubbed Dragon Ball Z. Is that it was not necessarily written to every time a Japanese person talks, an American person talks.
Right.
They wrote it to where it's just supposed to sound good as a dialogue together. So sometimes they might have